Most Americans don't have a financial protection problem. They have a structural illusion problem. They believe they're covered because they have a savings account, because they've done the math, because they've heard the rules and followed them. What they actually have is a plan built for the expected month, and financial crises are never average. Here's what the inside of most households actually looks like: one or two income streams, a savings account with whatever survived the last few months, a rough sense that the 3 to 6 month rule means you're protected, and a quiet, persistent feeling, the kind that doesn't come up at dinner but surfaces at 2 in the morning, that if something truly went sideways, everything built over the last decade could disappear faster than anyone could respond. That feeling isn't anxiety, it's pattern recognition. Your brain is identifying a real structural gap that most financial content never addresses directly. What separates families who absorb a major financial shock completely intact? Job loss, medical crisis, housing emergency, or all three arriving within the same 60 days. From families who spend the next 3 years rebuilding from zero has almost nothing to do with how much money they had. It has everything to do with how that money was structured. There's a framework, I call it the 3-layer capital protection plan, that almost no financial content creator explains to ordinary American families. Not an investment strategy, no market exposure, no risk required. But when one of these layers is missing, the entire financial safety net has a structural gap that stays invisible until the exact moment it matters most. Here's the engineering fact that permanently changes how you see your savings account. When a structural engineer designs a bridge, they don't calculate the maximum load it needs to carry and build it to exactly that limit. They design it to hold 3 to 4 times that load. Because the real world doesn't behave like a spreadsheet, wind shifts, multiple vehicles arrive simultaneously, unusual stresses compound, 2 unexpected things happen on the same day. Your financial protection plan was built to hold exactly the weight it's expected to carry, the average month, the average emergency, one manageable problem at a time. No redundancy, no safety factor, which means the moment the real world arrives with its compounding timing problems and its refusal to wait, the structure doesn't flex, it fractures. Layer 1 is liquidity protection. You've heard it described before, and what I'm about to say will make everything you've heard about it slightly uncomfortable. The 3 to 6 month emergency fund guideline was established in a different economic era. The cost structure of an American household in 2026 is categorically different from what that rule was designed for. Inflation since 2020 has permanently repriced essentials. Healthcare costs have become one of the leading causes of financial collapse for middle-income households specifically, not because of catastrophic illness, but because of the accumulation of deductibles, premiums, and out-of-pocket costs during extended recovery periods. The average time to replace a career-level income has stretched significantly, and the 3-month floor that once represented genuine security now covers a fundamentally smaller amount of real-world risk. Proper liquidity protection, calibrated to today's cost reality, starts at 5 months of true essential expenses: housing, insurance, utilities, food, transportation, and nothing beyond that. For single-income households or anyone in a volatile sector, the real number is closer to 8 months of that floor. Not 8 months of lifestyle spending, 8 months of your actual structural floor, the minimum required to keep the household functioning while the situation resolves. That's the load-bearing foundation of the bridge. Without it properly sized, everything above is compromised before you start. But Layer 1 correctly funded is not enough. And this is where financial protection breaks down silently over years without a single visible warning sign. Layer 2 is what I call the inflation shield. The concept is almost never explained to families who aren't actively investing, and the absence of this layer is one of the most common reasons that financial safety nets lose structural integrity over time without anyone noticing. Here's what inflation actually does to a savings reserve. If your entire financial cushion sits in a standard checking account or a low-yield savings account, you are not holding stable capital. You are holding capital that loses 2 to 3% of its purchasing power every year. Over 5 years, a $30,000 emergency fund parked in a low-yield account has effectively shrunk by thousands of dollars in real terms, without a single cent spent. The number displayed on your screen remains unchanged. The protection that number actually provides shrinks every year. The bridge holds the same number of steel beams, but they're getting thinner. The inflation shield is a specific allocation, the portion of your savings positioned above your immediate liquidity buffer, held in instruments that preserve purchasing power without exposing principal to market risk. high-yield savings accounts, Treasury I-bonds, short-term FDIC-insured certificates of deposit. Instruments where capital preservation is structural, not contingent on market performance. The function of this layer is not growth. It is maintaining the actual protective value of your safety net over a 5 to 10-year horizon. A bridge doesn't just need to hold the load on opening day. It needs to hold it in a decade. Most families skip this layer entirely. Their liquidity protection erodes quietly from the inside, invisible, never triggering a notification, never appearing in a monthly statement, until the moment it's needed and they discover it covers less ground than they calculated years before. Which brings us to the third layer, the one that separates real financial resilience from the appearance of it. Here is the scenario that no single-layer protection plan is built to handle, the one that actually destroys financial stability more reliably than any single catastrophic event. Multiple things go wrong simultaneously. Job disruption at the same time as an unexpected medical cost. A major vehicle failure in the same month and insurance renewal increases. A structural home repair 2 weeks after a family emergency requires unexpected travel. Research on household financial collapse consistently points not at single catastrophic events, but at the compounding of 3 or 4 mid-sized disruptions that arrive too close together to absorb sequentially. Each one individually would have been manageable. Together, they exceed the capacity of a plan built for one problem at a time. Layer 3 is tail risk coverage, and the reason mainstream personal finance avoids explaining this to ordinary families is that the concept usually appears in investment contexts, sophisticated portfolios managing extreme market events. But the underlying principle of protecting against the simultaneous failure scenario applies at every income level, and it requires nothing exotic. Tail risk coverage at the household level has 3 specific components. First, the right insurance structure at the right deductible levels, coverage calibrated not for the average claim but for the compounded crisis scenario. Second, a clearly defined credit backstop, a line you never touch under normal conditions, maintained at zero balance, reserved exclusively for the simultaneous failure event that temporarily exceeds all 3 layers. Third, and most critically, a pre-committed decision protocol. A written sequencing plan that tells you exactly which layer you access first, in which order, under what specific conditions. That last piece is where most households with adequate savings still fail. They have the capital. They do not have the protocol. When a compounded crisis hits, they draw from the wrong layer in the wrong sequence, and the protection collapses from the inside out. The family that survives a $40,000 simultaneous crisis fully intact is often not the family with the larger savings balance. It is the family with a deliberately structured 3-layer system and a clear decision sequence, versus the same amount of money sitting in a single account with no framework for which crisis gets addressed first. This is what structural financial security actually looks like, not a larger number in a single account. A 3-layer architecture where each layer serves a distinct protective function and no layer is asked to do the work of another. Layer 1, 5 to 8 months of essential expenses in immediately accessible liquid form, recalibrated to real 2026 cost structures. Layer 2, an inflation shield, a portion of your financial reserves in instruments that preserve purchasing power over years without exposing capital to market risk. Layer 3, tail risk coverage, the right insurance architecture, a pre-maintained credit backstop, and a written sequencing protocol for the moment multiple things go wrong at once. Take 30 minutes this week and map your current capital preservation setup against these 3 layers. Identify which one, if any, is missing or underfunded in your financial protection plan. Because the gap you find, the layer you discover you've been assuming was handled, might be the most important financial discovery you make this year. Crises don't schedule themselves, they don't arrive one at a time, and they won't wait for a plan that was built for the average month.